It is new bag day. Let's go ahead, open this up and see what we have here. Now, the old bag, to be fully honest with you, I was overloading it, alright? Being fully honest with you, I overloaded it. Threads started ripping. It was a $30-some bag. And you know, it was time for something different. I went ahead and went with this KNF bag, because it's from an actual camera gear brand. Had some decent reviews, and it looked like it was a little bit bigger than my other bag. So I went ahead and went with this KNF bag. I went ahead and got the blue one to match the lens bag. And let's go ahead and open this up and see what we went ahead and did in here. So making sure to bring the zippers all the way down to the ends. Open this up. In the pouches up here is all just cables. Same thing here, pretty much all just cables. And there's also a patch down below that is where the rain jacket is for the bag, along with some other random bits. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the bulk of the bag here. I think my camera straps are also in the pouch below this whole thing. Anyway, getting into the main part of the bag itself. This just makes me happy, having a bag like this where I can fit everything that I need. Instead of overfilling it or having some of it overflow into the lens bag, etc., etc. This just makes me so happy. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and not only show everything that's in the bag here, but we're also gonna go ahead and build these cameras to what they are generally set up to be. And let's go ahead and start with let's start with this. So here we have a T5i charger. That just fits into that crevice there. That was just kind of left over from when I was setting up the bag. Here we have the R100 charger, and then the 5D Mark III charger. And oh, there we go. We have a power brick here with a few different outputs for various things. Here we have coins for tripod mounts, as well as extra SD cards. At some point I'd like to get a proper SD card case, but at the moment those two that are there for the backups aren't really worth a whole lot. So if I get SD cards that are worth more, then I'll absolutely get one. This is a extra viewfinder eyepiece for the 5D Mark III. Speaking of the 5D Mark III, we'll get to that one last. First, we will go with the most boring camera. Here we have our T5i here. And for this, as for how it's set up, it currently has a PNY Elite X 128 gigabyte, 100 megabyte per second write speed. That is how this camera is, that is the card that this camera is currently set up with. And then what I usually do with these caps is just put them where for the camera or the lens that it's supposed to be with. And this camera usually ends up with this Tamron 18 to 270 millimeter. Here we have a lens cap, or not a lens cap, but a lens hood finally for this lens. And this is a camera I use to take the telephoto shots of the trains that I usually go out and shoot. So if I'm using a camera with a telephoto setup, it's typically this. This T5i is going to get swapped out with either a 70 Mark II. I currently have one on the way, but it's in unknown condition, so we'll see if that ends up working out or not. And then if that doesn't work, then possibly an 80D. You know, if I feel like spending a little bit of money, then, you know, 80D. If I don't feel like spending a whole lot of money, 70D. But we'll see what happens. But yes, this is the typical setup for when I am shooting telephoto stuff for trains. I would also like to point out that I do have a filter on this lens. I like having filters on the lenses just because it gives added protection for the for the glass of the lens. What I'd like to do is I can never get this back on right. There we go. I would like to get UV filters or something like that to go on top of all the lenses to protect that front glass. It's just to me, I just like that protection, as well as possibly getting lens hoods for the rest of the lenses, just to protect them, just for even more protection. Because if you mess up that front glass, it's not a good time. Next camera, we will go ahead and do video for the R100. The R100 typically shoots 1080p at 60 FPS when it comes to trains. Got your battery there. And then for the SD card, it's another one of these. And these have been working just fine for me, but of course, if the day ever comes where I need something different or something more, always willing to go ahead and do that. So, as I had said, I just go ahead and put those into the compartments where, for the lens or camera that they belong to. This lens adapter lives on this camera basically, as I do not own any RF lenses. I got this camera for $350, I believe, open box like new. And it was just the body, there was no lens. So this is the Tamron 17 to 50 millimeter f2.8. So it is a lowest aperture of f2.8 through the whole zoom. I typically use this lens for video because it's not super sharp. It is not a super sharp lens. It's a great lens when it comes to it being f2.8 through the whole thing. It really is. And for the $100 that you can find these at on eBay, it's a good deal. You just got to keep in mind that they aren't exactly the sharpest. So I've been using it for video because on video, when it's taking 60 images per second and putting them all into into a video, you know, it's sharp enough to where it looks good on video, you know, and it being f2.8 does really help during low light. So this is what we are looking at for 1080p 60 fps video. So f2.8 lens, good for daylight and low light. We have this MXL FR310. There we go. And then this is where you put your AAA to power the mic. And yes, this is the video setup. So I can probably go ahead and turn this on just to show it off. Yeah. Alrighty, on to the next one. I guess I'll also go ahead and show the teardown for this as well. And of course, I'm trying to do this in a slightly cramped area. Of course, it gives me issues. Well, only while I'm recording. Only while I'm recording. That's how everything goes. Okay, go ahead and cover up your sensor. The R100, I do like the R100, especially for its size. If you're looking for a small camera, the R100 is good. Compared to my DSLRs, if I'm being honest with you, you know, it's not super snappy. It can be snappy when it wants to be, but I've had issues with it where it just sometimes it hunts a little bit, and you know, if you're shooting something fast, like I typically am, and this just rests right in there, kind of cockeyed on its side, so it's not actually putting any pressure on this. But when you're shooting something fast, like I typically am, you know, you need the camera to not hesitate, and my DSLRs, they don't hesitate. That's why this thing has kind of been pushed back into video instead of pictures. It's also another reason why this one has been brought into the camera bag, now running 3 bodies. And it's because this one's 24 megapixels, this one is 18, and it's not bad. 18 megapixels is a good range, especially if you're doing something like I'm doing, where you're just taking pictures of trains or something like that. But camera gear is a hobby for me as well, and I want something a little more than 18 megapixels. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens to this 7D Mark II when it shows up. Here we have the 5D Mark III, my main picture camera, my favorite camera. Love this thing. And the lens that I typically use for the moment is this Canon 28 to 135 millimeter. Now, and I do also have a filter on this one as well. You know, for something like this, for a 5D Mark III, right, you want a better lens than this. You do. But if you're just trying to do something on a budget, this does work. The center of the image is pretty darn sharp, I will say. Actually, the whole image is fairly sharp. Now, once you get towards the corners, there is color fringing. And there is a little bit of vignetting. But honestly, for a $100 lens for a full frame camera, with this kind of zoom, it's not bad. Like, I think people are sleeping on this lens a little bit. Now, if you're trying to take professional grade photos, don't buy this lens. You know, it has color fringing. It gets slightly softer, you know, towards the corners of the images. It has vignetting, you know, it has things where in some cases it's really not that bad, and in other cases it's an absolute deal breaker. For shooting trains, where the trains are pretty much in the center of the image the entire time and you're posting it onto social media, no one's gonna notice the issues that this shows when you're zoomed in, right? Okay, and at some point I will get a more proper lens for this thing. It's on one of the next, it's on the list for one of the next lenses I buy. It's probably going to be a Tamron 28 to 75 millimeter. Those are pretty darn sharp through the whole thing. They go for around $150, so you know, it's not quite as good as a Canon L series lens, but it's still really solid for $150, and it'll perform way better than this lens will. Going into here, we have a 128 gigabyte compact flash card here. This is the main card for this camera. I was having issues getting the camera to, like, you know, I would set it to shoot JPEG and RAW, and then when I turned off the camera and then turned it back on, it would just go back to only JPEG. So I had tried to throw this in there to see if that would fix it for some reason, and then I remembered that every time you edit anything in the menu, you also got to go over and make sure to save it to whatever whatever custom setting you have over here. So that was just me being kind of an idiot. And whenever I figure out, you know, what I'm doing with the fourth body, like if the 7D Mark II works, this card, which has an 80 megabyte write speed, will go into the T5i, and then the 128 gigabyte 100 megabyte write speed card will go into that 7D Mark II, provided that, you know, provided it works. But that SD card shift will happen whenever. Go ahead and put this in the on top, and see if I can. There we go. So that shift will happen whenever I figure out what my main three bodies are. But yes. Let's go ahead and put this away. Fairly simple process. And again, I just like having the UV filters on there, just to kind of have another layer of lens protection. Love this camera. Love this camera. 5D Mark III. As for the remaining lenses here, we've been over these three. Let's go ahead and do this one next. This is a Canon EF-S Sigma 10 to 20 millimeter, so it would be going on one of these two cameras. Love the wide angle on this thing, and it's about as wide as you can get without having crazy fisheye effect or distortion or whatever you want to call it. Here is the kit lens. The reason I have this kit lenses here is so that I can throw this onto the video camera, and then I can then use this on this camera here, in case it's a lower light or something like that, or I want to use a non-telephoto lens on one of these cameras. And the reason that is because this is from my my lens bag. I have this lens as well. This is an EF full frame Sigma 72-300 millimeter. And yeah, it basically, if I want to use this to take telephoto photos instead of if I want to use this to take telephoto photos on the full frame instead of using this guy to take telephoto photos on the crop sensor, I can do that, and then I can take this lens and this lens and then throw it on whichever camera I want. Go ahead and put this back. And now we have the last pocket here. This is your standard Canon Nifty 50. This is the Canon 50mm f1.8 version 2. This is the one that came out before the STM one, which I would like to upgrade to eventually. I'm just more so kind of waiting for this one to die, and then that'll happen. And then we have a teleconverter, 2x teleconverter. At some point this will get put into the lens bag instead. Whenever I get the 24mm EF-S f2.8, that'll go in there below the 50. And the reason I want to get that is because to have a nice small compact setup for this camera for me to just take anywhere, right? Okay, because I can absolutely put this 50mm EF lens onto this camera. Only problem is it has the effective, yeah, it's having issues because we're so close. It effectively turns it into an 80mm lens, because of the 1.6 times crop factor on it. So, well, you know, yes, this is work, and yes, this is fairly small. It's the equivalent of 80 millimeters, and if you're doing street photography or just, you know, taking pictures of random stuff, you know, unless you're super far away from whatever the picture is that you're trying to take, it's not gonna work, right? So yeah, this is basically just gonna be the prime lens pocket whenever I get the other lens. So yeah, those are the next two lenses I'm trying to get, by the way, is that Tamron f2.8 28 to 75 millimeter EF, and then the 24 millimeter EFS f2.8. Those are the two I'm trying to get next. You know, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's about it. That's pretty much this whole main pocket here. As I said, it's just cords over here on that side, and then there's another pocket on the bottom here that just has some extra bits and stuff. This phone that I'm currently recording with goes into this pocket as well with the cords and such. This is shooting 4K 60 FPS. So, you know, if I do need something that does require 4K, or I want 4K on something, then I use this phone. But if I want the nice Canon color science and the depth of like a proper camera, then I'll shoot 1080-60 on this. And you know, when I'm out shooting trains, I'm doing a mix of both. I'm using, for certain trains, you know, or certain situations, I'm using the 4K 60. For other trains or other situations, I'm using the 1080-60 with the proper camera and the mic. That's going to be it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. We will see you in the next one. Feel free to like and subscribe. Comment if you have any questions or just have any other general information you would like to share. I hope you guys have a good one. We will see you in the next one.